All right, today we're diving into something pretty huge. It's a bold, very controversial new economic strategy that some are starting to call an economic shock doctrine for our times. Let's break it down.
Yeah, news analysts are actually using that phrase, an economic shock doctrine. I mean, that alone tells you a lot, right? It perfectly captures the incredible speed and the massive scale of the changes we're talking about. This isn't just tweaking the rules, it's a deliberate, high-stakes bet to completely reshape the American economy at its very core. So, let me just start with a wild question. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow and the federal income tax was just gone? Seriously, it's not a hypothetical, it's a core piece of the strategy we're looking at today, and it's designed to shift trillions of dollars around the economy. But before we get too deep into what's happening at home, we've got to look outward first. Because the very first, and you could argue the most dramatic, move in this playbook was a complete teardown and rebuild of America's approach to global trade. And the speed of these changes is just stunning. Within a few months in 2025, the administration basically built a massive wall of tariffs. It started with 25% on steel, then it escalated to a 10% tariff on pretty much all imports, with a special 30% rate just for China, and then they doubled down, cranking the steel tariff up to 50%. This was not a gradual shift. It was a shockwave sent through the global trading system.
So you might be asking, how is this even legal? Well, the administration used a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, claiming an economic emergency. But there's a huge problem. The courts have pushed back, and they've pushed back hard. They've basically ruled that the IEEPA was never designed to be used for tariffs, and that a trade deficit doesn't count as an extraordinary threat. So now we're in this crazy legal limbo, where the tariffs are in place, but their whole legal basis is up in the air.
Okay, so let's shift gears to the second part of this strategy, which is just as audacious. While they're putting up trade barriers on the outside, they're simultaneously firing up a massive stimulus program on the inside, all designed to flood the U.S. economy with cash.
And the key here is that this isn't just one policy. It's a coordinated 1-2 punch. On the fiscal side, that's the government, you've got the proposal to get rid of income taxes, which puts more money directly into people's pockets. Then, on the monetary side, you have intense pressure on the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, making it cheaper for everyone to borrow and spend. The goal is unmistakable: pump a historic amount of money into the economy.
And all that pressure, it seems to be working. If you look at the CME FedWatch tool, which basically tracks how financial markets are betting, traders are now pricing in a 90% probability of a rate cut by the end of the year. The market is absolutely convinced the central bank is about to turn on the taps.
Now, it's not all just these huge, broad strokes. There are also some really targeted ideas in the mix. One of the most talked about is the creation of Trump accounts. The plan would give children in low-income areas a $1,000 seed investment, put it in an index fund, and let them access it when they turn 18. The idea is to create a sense of long-term wealth and get a new generation to participate in the market.
So, just to recap, we have tariffs that restrict trade and a massive stimulus program to boost the economy. But this is where the strategy gets, well, kind of strange. It's like a playbook that's hitting the gas and the brake at the exact same time. I mean, just look at the contrast. On one hand, the gas pedal is floored. Tax cuts and lower interest rates are all meant to fuel spending and growth. But on the other hand, the brake is being slammed. Strict immigration limits reduce the supply of workers, which can choke off growth. And cutting food assistance, or SNAP, for 800,000 people literally takes spending power right out of the economy. It's a fundamental contradiction that has a lot of economists very concerned.
This whole push and pull thing at home has major consequences around the world. For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of global finance. But this new playbook is making people ask some serious questions about the dollar's future and whether its throne is as secure as it used to be.
Barry Eichengreen, who is a really prominent economic historian, argues that these policies are chipping away at what's called the dollar's exorbitant privilege. Now, that's just a fancy term for the unique advantage the U.S. gets because it prints the world's main currency. It lets us borrow money more cheaply than anyone else. By acting alone on trade and creating so much uncertainty, the U.S. might actually be encouraging other countries to start looking for alternatives.
And a big part of this concern is rooted in the data.
America's share of global exports isn't what it used to be. A key reason the dollar is king is because it's used for all that global trade. So, as America's role in that trade gets smaller, the basic need for other countries to hold and use dollars could start to weaken too. But ultimately, all this high-level talk about trade, interest rates, the dollar, it all comes down to the price of everyday stuff for regular people. And the single biggest risk in this entire economic experiment is a comeback tour for inflation. And this is the critical disconnect. No matter what some of the official economic numbers might say, the feeling on the ground is crystal clear. A staggering 85% of Americans say that day-to-day goods are still getting more expensive. This just shows you the power of what people actually experience, and that's going to be the main way most people judge whether any of these policies are a success. So, what should you take away from all this? As this whole high-stakes experiment rolls out, there are three key things to watch. First, how fast and how deep do the Fed's interest rate cuts go? Second, does all this stimulus money reignite inflation? And third, how intense do the political battles get over these really radical changes, especially that idea of eliminating the income tax? The answers to those questions will pretty much define the future of the American economy.
If you had to boil this entire playbook down to a single formula, this is it. It's a fusion of two powerful things. You stimulate the economy with a massive flood of cash to create a feeling of wealth, and at the same time, you target perceived national enemies with things like tariffs and security policies to create a feeling of safety. Which leaves us with one final, crucial question. This whole strategy is a high-stakes race against the clock. It's a test to see if you can boost asset prices and create a sense of wealth through stimulus faster than inflation comes along and erodes the real value of that wealth. The outcome of that race will define the next chapter of the American economy.